90,000 people are on their feet. The score reads 3-0. Half-time has just finished. In the technical area, someone is already making plans for summer. In the stands, families gather their belongings. The bookmakers have already paid out. At home, millions of viewers reach for the off button. And then the ball finds the head of a man with orange armband. 3 minutes. That is how long it takes for everything to change. By the end of 6 minutes, the impossible will be done. This is football untold. This is the story of Istanbul 2005, the 6 minutes that broke football. May 25, 2005. Atatürk Olympic Stadium in Istanbul, the Champions League final. Not every final is created equal. Some nights in football are supposed to be coronations. This was supposed to be one of them. AC Milan's starting 11 was built on a principle: spare no expense, spare no ambition. Dida in goal, Cafu at right back, a man who had won 3 World Cups. Alessandro Nesta in the center of defense, arguably the most complete defender in Europe that season. Jaap Stam beside him, a colossus, experienced, immovable. Paolo Maldini at left back. At 36 years old, Maldini was not a relic clinging to past glories. He was still the standard by which all others were measured. The midfield was architecture. Andrea Pirlo, the metronome of Italian football. Gennaro Gattuso, ferocious, a man who would run through walls for possession. Clarence Seedorf, capable of anything. And then Rui Kaká, the young magician, 22 years old. 31 million euros had brought him to Milan. The forward line, Hernan Crespo, clinical and sharp. Andriy Shevchenko, perhaps the most feared forward in world football that season, 39 goals in Serie A. This was not a football team. This was an indictment. Liverpool had finished 5th in the Premier League, 37 points behind Chelsea. In his first season at the club, Rafael Benitez had been grinding through a rebuild, fighting against the odds, learning the rhythms of a club that had been in decline. Nobody was expecting Liverpool to be here. The bookmakers certainly were not. Paolo Maldini made a run down the left. The Liverpool defense fractured. Maldini received the ball and from barely inside the box, fired past Jerzy Dudek into the corner of the net. 50 seconds. The fastest goal in Champions League final history. He wheeled away, arms spread, and the stadium erupted. The script had been written. Milan was in control. By the 39th minute, Crespo made it 2. A Kaká through ball threaded between Liverpool's defensive lines. Crespo burst through and chipped Dudek. It was the kind of finish that announces a player's confidence, not a desperate stab, but a composed piece of technical mastery. 44 minutes. Crespo scored again. Another Kaká assist, another demonstration of Milan's superiority. The ball was lofted in from deep, and Crespo, arriving at the back post, planted his header past Dudek. 3-0. In the dressing rooms, it was felt but not yet said. Some Milan staff had already begun preparing. The shirts were ready, campioni, champions. The players had not officially been crowned, but the coronation was in motion. Gennaro Gattuso would later acknowledge it. The dressing room felt like a place where the outcome had already been decided. The mathematics were over. Only the ceremony remained. In the Liverpool dressing room, something different was happening. The fans outside were singing, "You'll Never Walk Alone." 54 years since their last European Cup. 3 goals down, the arithmetic did not make sense, and yet the singing did not stop. In that moment, when logic and hope diverge, some groups hold tight to hope anyway. Rafael Benitez made a decision. He withdrew Salif Diarra and sent on Diet Mohamed. The formation shifted to 3 at the back. 3-5-2, more bodies in midfield, more pressure on the ball, a tactical last stand rather than a measured retreat. It was a gamble. It was also, perhaps, the most important decision of the night. 54 minutes. The second half had been underway for 9. A cross came from the left, from John Arne Riers. Steven Gerrard rose above his marker. His header was certain and true. It found the bottom corner. 3-1. The roar that came from the Liverpool end was not the sound of hope. It was the sound of something deeper, defiance, maybe, or the sound of a man deciding that surrender was not an option. 2 minutes later, that is when football becomes dangerous. When the inevitable narrative fractures, something new can grow. 56 minutes. Vladimir Smicer, a substitute, a man who would never play for Liverpool again after this season, took possession 25 yards from goal. He struck the ball. It curved and dipped and found the net. 3-2. In 4 minutes, the mathematics of the evening had been rewritten. The bookmakers were not recalculating. The staff preparing the champagne were not moving, but the players on the pitch understood. This was no longer a coronation. This was a game. 60 minutes, exact. Gennaro Gattuso brought down Steven Gerrard in the box. The contact was certain. The decision was certain. Penalty. Xabi Alonso walked to the spot. Dida was a wall in goal. The ball struck him. It rebounded. Alonso was following. His left foot found it. The ball buried itself in the net. 3-3. 6 minutes, 3 goals. Against the defense of AC Milan, the same defense that had conceded 0 goals against PSV in the semi-final until the dying moments. The same defense built by Ancelotti, shaped by experience and pedigree. Gone. There is a moment that lives in football history when the structure of a narrative breaks, when the thing that was supposed to happen stops being inevitable. That moment had arrived in Istanbul. The game moved into extra time. Milan should have been dead. Momentum was gone. The young faces in the Liverpool midfield had seized something from the older minds around them. And yet Milan came back. They came back the way great teams do, with belief, with precision, with the kind of football that is almost beautiful in its desperation. In the 117th minute, Andriy Shevchenko had 2 chances, point blank, from the penalty area, 2 shots that should have decided everything. Jerzy Dudek made a double save, and in the moment after that save, Shevchenko understood. He knew then that Milan would not win. Some players can read the future. The look on his face said it all. The game went to penalties. Dudek stood in goal. He began to move his legs, up and down, side to side, the way Bruce Grobbelaar had done in 1984, the spaghetti legs, the distraction, the theatre. Pirlo stepped forward. His penalty was saved. Shevchenko stepped forward. His was saved too. Serginho blazed over the crossbar. The mathematics reversed. Liverpool won 3-2. Steven Gerrard was named man of the match, a player who, 6 minutes earlier, had been watching his team prepare for the applause of history, a player who had refused to accept that script. Liverpool won their 5th European Cup, and with it, the right to keep the trophy permanently. A team that had been 37 points behind the English champions, a team managed by a coach in his first season, a team that had sung its way through humiliation and emerged on the other side with their hands on the prize. It is difficult to overstate the scale of what happened in those 90 minutes. In football, the emergence of new evidence does not typically overturn old conclusions, but Istanbul did something different. It created a moment in which the old certainties no longer applied. Rafael Benitez stayed at Liverpool for 6 seasons. He won the Champions League, which justified everything, which made the gamble on a tactical switch into something that would echo through his entire tenure. He became a Liverpool legend in a single season. Carlo Ancelotti, the Milan coach, called it the most absurd night of his career. He was not being romantic. He was being precise. The words of a man who had been inside a structure and watched it collapse from within. Exactly 2 years later, on May 23, 2007, in Athens, AC Milan faced Liverpool again in the Champions League final. Filippo Inzaghi scored twice. Milan won 2-1. In that moment, a narrative closed. A revenge story was written. And for the players on Milan's roster who had lived through Istanbul, it provided something that history does not often grant, a second chance to rewrite what came before. They were allowed to retire in peace. The trophy was already decided by the time the final whistle sounded in Athens. But what mattered was that the squad that had been shattered by 6 minutes in Istanbul now held something that made sense again. UEFA ran polls asking fans to vote on the greatest Champions League final of all time. Istanbul 2005 has won every time, not because Milan played better, not because Liverpool deserved it more, but because something broke open that night. Something that should not have been possible became possible. The mathematics of football was suspended. And in that suspension, everyone who watched understood that they had been shown something rare, a night when the script was torn up, when the impossible was not just imagined, but achieved. It has never happened again, A team has never come back from 3 goals down in a Champions League final. The records have been searched. The nights have been counted. It stands alone. Football is a game of logic interrupted by nights like this. That is why we watch. Some stories end at full time. This one never did.